Hello, everyone. Welcome to another live commentary. It's me, Cam Logan, and also Austin, the Day Ghost.
Yo.
What's up, man?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Are you ready to watch another wonderful classic horror film?
I am.
If you can call it that. You know, The Silence of the Lambs and the movie that you picked for us last week, Austin sort of picked both of these this year, and I really appreciated his selections. We try to do at least two Halloween movies that are appropriate for Halloween commentaries in October each year, and you picked two movies that have a weird number of things in common, like movies that I would never have thought to really compare and put together. But like one of the things, and we'll talk about a number of other examples later on, but one of the big things they have in common is they're both technically horror movies, but while I'm watching them, I don't feel like I'm watching a horror film. You know what I mean? Like there's nothing like sensational or gratuitous about either of these things, and they're dramas and they're thrillers, and this one especially, a crime drama, a psychological thriller, before it's trying to have fun with the kills and all of that. And so like it's horror in the broader genre, but it's not really a horror movie. And The Exorcist is exactly the same way.
Yeah. First of all, I actually didn't pick this one. I think Chewbacca's Lover is right in the comments. I think he mentioned it in the chat, and we were like, "Yeah, that sounds good. We can."
Oh, was that what it was? Oh, well, sorry for not giving him credit. I don't know. I've slept since then.
Okay.
I didn't remember how this came about. Because I know you picked Exorcist, and
yeah, that one I definitely.
I thought you threw a few different ideas at me, and I said sure, let's do Silence because I got this recently in the Criterion release and was looking for an excuse to watch it.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, that that's important, but yeah, credit where it's due. Apologies to Chewbacca's Lover.
But the other thing is that this movie does have one of my biggest pet peeves. I think James Rolfe talked about this in Monster Madness or somewhere. So I'll try not to repeat him, even though I don't remember exactly what he said. But this movie is one of those movies where like it is a horror movie, but it also was like highly nominated at the Oscars, and people are weird about horror as a genre, so it like constantly gets like other genres thrown at it, where like, well, it's not really a horror movie, like it's a thriller, and it's like, no, it is a horror movie.
Well, but I'm going to stand by that because the people making the film don't call it that. You know, so like, yes,
yeah, but
sure,
I also think
it
that's just
counts.
stigma of the genre.
Say again?
I said I also think that's part of what I'm saying, though, is just the stigma of the genre.
Yeah, but I don't think that's a stigma thing. I think while they were making it, it didn't occur to any of them that they were making a horror film. And when it came out and people started classifying it that way, I mean, I was watching an interview today with the director, and he said he was blindsided by that. He was like, "Oh, people are calling it a horror movie. We didn't think we were making a horror movie." I don't think it's because of stigma. I don't think he was like, "We got to dance around the fact that it's a horror film." He read a book that he liked, and he took the job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's weird because like it's also a horror mystery novel, but I don't know. But anyways,
and they also weren't totally sure what the tone of it was going to turn out to be as they were filming it.
Mm-hmm.
Where like to them, scene by scene, it seemed like it kept kind of jumping tones, and they weren't sure what they were going to end up with until they got into the editing bay, which is really kind of fascinating.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, for them, I think it was much more of a crime drama. That just like with Exorcist, they have to lean into the violence and the terror to make it effective, because the subject matter is so terrifying. So that's where I get off saying, well, yeah, it's horror because it has to be, but I don't think anybody involved in this sat down and said we're putting another thing in the in the horror genre.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, possibly. But
I don't know. I just got that from the horse's mouth. But even as I was watching it, I had the same thing I did with Exorcist, where I was like, oh, I don't feel like I'm watching a horror movie. And also the fact that my wife could get through it and really liked it makes it harder for me to classify it that way, because she can't stand the traditional horror genre.
Oh, and sorry, I can actually hear myself a little bit through your speaker. But yeah, I guess in terms of that with Sarah, like both this and The Exorcist aren't very gratuitous, so
Yeah.
it definitely does have that.
Are you still hearing yourself?
Nope.
Cool. Well, we're going to go ahead and get into it here in a second. Austin, real quick, what is your history with this? Because I had not watched this movie since high school, and really liked it back at that time, back in the day, as it were. I had to do a research project for a film class on one of the movies in the AFI's Top 100, and I assume this movie is still in that list. I haven't looked at it in a long time, but that's what I ended up selecting, and was really impressed with it at the time, but never ended up going back to it. And I've never seen any of the of the sequel prequel material.
Yeah, so I'm trying to remember exactly when I first saw this. I think, if I'm not mistaken, so when I was like 12, 13, I would go to my dad's every other weekend, and there was like this period where he would show me like a lot of classic horror movies. That's how I see, like Halloween and Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th and all that stuff. And I think this is one of the ones he showed me. And then I know he showed me Red Dragon not too long after that. And then I've seen like parts of Hannibal, the movie, not the TV show. I don't know, it was at some point in high school. And I've never seen the TV show. But I'd only seen this maybe 2 times before getting ready for this commentary.
Oh wow, okay. I thought you were more familiar with it than that.
Mm-hmm. No, actually, technically, with both this and The Exorcist, I think I'd only seen both of them about twice, because The Exorcist I didn't see until maybe like 3 years ago.
And this is one of those movies that is dense enough and sophisticated, dare I say cerebral enough even, that I feel a little bit intimidated by it and almost want like 2, 3, 4 more viewings before I even try to talk about it and tackle it in any way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. No, and there's just like a really good like tete-a-tete to the dialogue, especially between Agent Starling and Hannibal Lecter.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like,
well,
it's easy to not pick up everything.
And there's a lot of just really understated symbolism and metaphor and stuff that I'm sure I'm still not even 100% grasping. Like there's pieces of it I don't think I got first time around that I think I understood better on a second viewing, and I don't know. I think if I sat down and I did like a full written analysis, I would probably start gleaning things and picking up on stuff that I haven't yet just watching it. But maybe as we're discussing it, stuff will jump out at me that I don't appreciate yet. I mean, I've got a couple reads on things, but I'm sure we'll talk about some things that 1,000,001 papers have been written about that I haven't had a chance to look at yet. I will say, this is of course a wonderful release. The Criterion release is getting all washed out on camera here, where you can almost only see the white and the butterfly, but it's got, of course, a lot of really great special features. I've only watched a little bit of the background material here, and I imagine there's commentaries. I haven't looked at those yet, but it also has a booklet with a couple of essays, and I read part of one of those that was mostly about the gender themes in the movie, but there's another one about the psychology of Hannibal Lecter, mostly, I think. And anyway, it's a really cool release, and I would definitely recommend it if you're a big fan of this movie. And it's a real pretty booklet. A lot of these come with that kind of thing. The Godzilla one does also, which I've only thumbed through.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, and this is one of the first 4Ks I ever got. My mom got me this for Christmas, not the last one, but the one before that. So, and it looks great on that. I'm sure it looks great on your Criterion release.
Yeah, what does the cover look like? On
it's just like the regular cover with the moth.
Oh, okay.
Face.
cool. Yeah, because mine's like a Rorschach inkblot test. It's cool.
Oh, that is cool. Yeah, I'm glad it's not like a stupid modern cover like the 4K release of The Exorcist.
Well, and Criterion tends to go really understated, like real minimalistic with theirs.
No, and they're really good at doing cool covers. Absolutely.
Robert says he couldn't figure out how to turn on the subtitles with his Criterion. Well, I don't know how that works within the disc, but I always just use the remote with the subtitle button, and then that worked just fine for me. So, anyway,
You try pressing it on the remote.
I said I hadn't watched any of the other related matter with this because, of course, now everything is a franchise, or at least with Silence of the Lambs, I guess it sort of is. I guess there's 3 movies that are supposed to be in the same continuity, right? And then there's a movie even before this that has Hannibal Lecter in it that was based on a different of his books.
Yes, so Silence of the Lambs is not the first book in the series. And then the movie you're thinking of, Manhunter,
Yes,
is an adaptation of Red Dragon. So that's actually a really interesting thing, is to watch the two of them side by side. I still haven't seen Manhunter. I've seen clips of it.
yeah, I didn't know if it was a direct adaptation of that or not.
Yeah, it is. It's especially
Interesting.
interesting seeing how, like Hopkins delivers a lot of those lines, and then how Brian Cox does. Because they have very different performances.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? We've talked about that, but I forgot that was Brian Cox.
His Hannibal Lecter is like very like snappy. Like he talks really quick, while Anthony Hopkins is very slow, and he savors every line.
I gotta look at that though. Yeah, I'm real curious about that. Well, and then something like this gets into the zeitgeist and is this real foundational piece that we cannot get away from in thrillers and horror and stuff. And so anybody else that would ever come along and play that character is going to be hard pressed to not kind of do a Hopkins impression, right? Like even if you're trying to go just directly from the material and try not to use any be influenced by the movie at all and use any of the visual reference or anything, I don't know how you would get away from it.
Yeah, well, even Red Dragon, which I like a lot and is the best Ratner movie, I think Hannibal Lecter only has like 1 or 2 scenes in the book and in the original movie, but because of Silence of the Lambs coming first, they have to up his role quite a bit because it's Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah, of course. Well, and like he probably wouldn't want to do it if he only got a couple of scenes.
Yeah, and some of that's really superfluous, but
sort of like you can't make Doctor Sleep without having visual references to The Shining. And I guess more than I haven't watched that movie, but I guess more than visual, where it was like kind of awkwardly sort of a sequel to that, but not really, is what I had heard.
Well, no, the awkward thing with Doctor Sleep is that it's a sequel to the original movie, but Stephen King hates that movie, so in order to get him to sign off on a sequel to Doctor Sleep, it also has to like make up for some of that. So that movie's got like a really weird third act because it's very compromised by like several different.
Does it like sort of retcon things? I need to just watch it at some point. People say it's great. I just never got around to it. I meant to watch it when it came out. I just forgot all about it.
You should. It's really good, and then has a weak third act. But Doctor Sleep is really good.
We'll go ahead and get into this, guys. I'm sorry for the long preamble. It might be cool next year or at some point to do both of those movies like 2 weeks in a row. Maybe not all in one night, but do The Shining 1 week and Doctor Sleep the next week.
Yeah, for sure.
That could be cool.
That would be cool.
I forget. Do you actually like The Shining?
Yeah, no, I like The Shining a lot.
Yeah, I do too. Not that I wouldn't do it with you if you hated that movie. That could also be an interesting discussion. But I just couldn't remember what your take was on that because I know people that really don't like that movie.
Well, it seems to me that like people who really love the book, kind of hate the movie. And I haven't read the book, but
and I have, and it hurt the movie a little bit. And I was afraid to go back to it. And then I watched it again, and I was like, I could put it out of my mind a little bit.
And my issue is that whenever I hear people who love the book tell me why the movie sucks, I'm always like, okay, but the version you're fighting for sounds less interesting.
Oh, well,
sorry.
I started to say a minute ago that I accidentally lied a few minutes ago. I have seen the pilot for the Hannibal TV show and was really impressed with it, and just haven't gotten around to getting back to that. And I guess that guy's not exactly doing Anthony Hopkins.
Oh yeah, Mads Mikkelsen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would imagine so. I gotta watch that show. I hear it's wonderful.
Anyway, but that's one of those things that
Yeah.
like didn't get finished, and so it's a little hard to get excited about,
Well, and
jumping
it's
into it because I know I'm going to
interesting
be
'cause
disappointed when it ends.
what's interesting from what I've heard, because I think it ends having only adapted Red Dragon, and the next season would have been Silence of the Lambs.
Ah, that's so sad.
So, from what I've heard, I could be completely wrong about that, but
Because it would have been interesting to see that stretched out for a whole season.
yeah,
And-
just to see what they're taking.
And we'll talk about the ways in which this feels like a TV premise to me. So,
absolutely,
because it kind of does.
I'm sure X-Files is going to come up.
Oh, I'll just bring it up right away then. That was one of the big things I wanted to mention. Yeah. Well, are you ready, Austin?
Yep,
Are you excited to get into it?
I am.
I didn't mean to talk for 16 minutes before we started watching the film. Anyway, here we go. Everybody,
Best preamble ever.
everybody, please press play right now. I gotta do it every time, Austin. Orion is bankrupt.
I thought you were going to do the film reel noise with the MGM logo at the.
Oh, you know what? I might end up being a few seconds ahead because I think I accidentally skipped past the. Hold on, I'll pause for a second. Tell me when the Orion
Okay.
logo is finished, okay?
It is finished right now.
Okay. Oh, hold on. It didn't pause. Okay. Okay. We'll assume that's good.
Well, I had a really stupid moment 'cause you're like, oh no, I skipped the Orion logo, and I was like, that's okay, I'll just pause it and we'll catch up.
Well, that's because you're usually the one that's ahead. So, Austin and I, I'll say this real quick before I mention the X-Files, and even this opening shot looks like it could be in that show. But Austin and I have been having a really interesting experience the last several reviews with things, where it seems like we've got like 2 or 3 degrees of everything we're watching with everything else we're watching, or with other things that just happen to come up in our lives constantly. Like, there's connections to just everything we're reviewing all the time. What is it all of a sudden this week with Scott Glenn?
Yeah, I don't know. It's so weird.
We
Just
reviewed
popping up and everything.
a Western from 1985 this week called Silverado, and Scott Glenn is in that. He's really good in it. And that's the guy, if you're not familiar, who... And the only thing I had remembered ever seeing him in before was Daredevil as Stick. And, of course, he's spectacular in that role, and he looks like he's 115 years old. And so when you go back and you see him in earlier things, he looks a lot younger, but he's also the kind of character actor that just... Well, maybe not even character actor. I mean, he gets lead roles. He has a main supporting role in this, but he's the kind of actor that really disappears in stuff. Kind of like D'Onofrio.
Mm-hmm.
He actually, I think, has that in common real hard with D'Onofrio.
Yeah, no, and there's one actor that we'll get to later on that's a character actor that I was like, oh no, my letterbox is going to knock him up to one of my most viewed actors, because I think he's in all the Austin Powers movies and in Beyond the Valley of the Dolls. It's like he just keeps popping up in things I've seen this year.
So immediately, I mean, all the way through this movie, everything we're seeing means something to this character, and it's one of the best examples of an almost like first-person experience with a movie, like as close as you can get to getting in a character's head without any kind of voiceover or without reading internal monologue in a novel. And right away, we're getting a really good sense of the crucible that she's going through in trying to be good enough to be in the FBI, and how much more difficult it is for her in you know, kind of a man's world sort of organization, and just really casting her as the underdog before you even know what her motivations are and why it's so important for her to be in the FBI, and then of course to catch serial killers. And the first big piece of symbolism that I noticed thinking back on this after watching it again was, oh, she's in an obstacle course and she's got to climb, you know, all the way to the top of the precipice, and then she just flips right over it, like she's barreling through. She's not going to let anything stop her, and of course life will not be that easy for her moving forward. but I don't think any of those kinds of choices are arbitrary at all.
No, absolutely not. No, like I said, it just kind of captures everything.
I was also impressed to see Jodie Foster do that by herself. I mean, do that herself. That wasn't a stunt double. Like, that's technically a stunt. You could get hurt doing that, I guess.
No, well, I also think it's just interesting opening with your female lead like covered in sweat and stuff. Like, we're moving away from some of that like Hollywoodized like beauty standards, I think.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And of course, this is a character that is not sexualized in any way besides characters who try to cast her in that light and objectify
everyone
her
around her.
and and kind of, you know, put her in her place, I guess. And so the second big kind of visual symbolic moment is she's in the elevator with you mentioned this to me earlier today, with all these, you know, much taller men,
big, strong
that
guys
make
that
them look 8 feet tall next to her. Like, we intentionally cast real short for this, or at least got lucky that Jodie Foster is perfect in every possible way for this role, because it was nearly Michelle Pfeiffer. That's who the director wanted initially, because he had just worked with her in another movie.
Yeah, and I can't imagine Pfeiffer in this movie.
That seems so wrong, especially because right after this she plays Catwoman, who's like the furthest, most opposite sort of character from Clarice, where you know, she's tall, she's built, she uses, you know, her feminine wiles against men. Like, she's as far away from this character as you could possibly get. Seductive.
There's just a confidence to Pfeiffer that I don't know would work in this movie.
I don't know how that would translate. And most people that read this really wanted to do it, and the few that the director really wanted that didn't sign off on it were kind of lucky that they didn't, because it was also nearly Sean Connery as Lecter. They offered it to him.
Weird. I heard they had offered it to Jack Nicholson, which is
I've never heard
also,
that.
I think. Yeah, I started a history channel documentary on this like right before we came on, so I only listened to a little bit. But they talked about how they wanted Jack Nicholson.
That's interesting. That name
wrong.
didn't come up in the material I watched today, but Dem talks real hard about Sean Connery because he thought that was the kind of commercial pick, and he felt like maybe he needed to do that in order to get people to come to the theater. And when Sean Connery said, "Oh, it's too violent, I don't want to do a movie like that," he went for Foster because she campaigned real hard to be in the film, which surprised everybody because she had just won an Oscar. And it was a real kind of risky thing for her to do right then. Not a real high profile thing. It was for Orion. People were really surprised that she wanted to do that role. But she read the book and was and was in love with it, and thought that it was kind of an important, you know, usurpation of the standard thriller formula and of the police procedural. I mean, we have to put Clarice right in that conversation we were having last week with The Exorcist of strong female characters that people don't bring up as examples of great female heroines or action stars, when the only people they can think of are Ripley and what's her face from Terminator, Sarah Connor.
Sarah Connor, yeah. Well, I feel like people bring up Scully a lot with the X-Files, and I don't think you get that character without this, especially visually.
No, and thanks for bringing me back to the X-Files, because I was, of course, wanted to talk about that. I got half an hour into this with Sarah, and I looked over at her, and I said, I didn't think of this last time I watched this movie, but this feels like a Scully prequel.
I mean, kind of, yeah.
I was like, this could almost be her backstory. And just the way the FBI is portrayed in this is exactly how it's played in the X-Files, where everybody is real stoic and no nonsense, and they mostly A lot of them, have their hearts in the right place and are really trying to help people, but they are very kind of cold and try to act as emotionless as possible to like really get the job done. And like, there's more bureaucracy and secrecy and stuff with the FBI in the X-Files, of course. This is, I think, about as altruistic and heroic of an FBI as you ever see in anything.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I guess you have that with a lot of kind of procedural things, but
There's very often though, isn't there kind of like that one guy that represents the bureaucracy and
that is true.
The politics of the FBI? You don't have that real hard with this. I mean, you do have the head of the FBI up at the top, but he's not blocking anybody. And hilariously, is played by Roger Corman, which is one of my favorite things about this movie.
No,
Did you know that's who that was?
I knew Roger Corman was in it, but I don't know what Roger Corman looks like.
He's
so I don't know
he's the head of the FBI, Austin. It's great.
That is pretty funny. But no, the closest you get to that kind of character that you're talking about is this guy that runs the prison.
Yes. And he is basically like the demon at the gate of hell.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look how
even
it's
up the
lit.
red lighting here.
Yeah. No, there is this interesting kind of mythic quality to this movie that Jodie Foster talks about in the behind the scenes feature that I was watching today, and I had thought of that a little bit. They go further than I had in just how kind of hero's journey it is, where she's got the descent into hell. And she has to go, save the damsel, and she's taking over the traditional kind of knight in shining armor role.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. This guy here, Cap Barney, that works at the prison.
Yeah.
This actor came back for Red Dragon, and he did not age a single day, even though it's like 10, 15 years later.
That's great.
It's really weird. What I was going to say. Oh,
but of course, Hannibal Lecter looks older, and it's earlier.
Yeah, he's both older and heavier set.
Yeah, you told me that.
Yeah, that part's a little awkward.
I mean, I remember that from the previews because I was working at a theater when that movie came out, or just before it, and I was like, "Oh wow, he doesn't really look like he does in Silence of the Lambs," but okay.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, I think there's like, there's someone coming to meet you, Hannibal. Her name's Clarice Starling or something at the end of that. So it like makes it a little awkward, like more awkward because of how much older he looks.
And of course, you have to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, of course.
You got to do the Rogue One thing with it. Dan Schneider.
At least it wasn't a CGI Foster.
Dan Schneider had a $5 super chat before we started, and I'll just read it real quick because I forgot about it. Apologies. He said, if Austin doesn't do the whole commentary in his Buffalo Bill impression, I want a refund.
Oh, I mean, I've already ruined it. Give him his money back. You shouldn't have even read it. I already ruined it.
No, I shouldn't have. Well, you can do it from now on, I guess. You got more time.
Well,
you got plenty of time.
I didn't really know that it was a Buffalo Bill voice, but then people started saying it was.
I mean, you could spend the whole time just doing the thing you did to me right before we started, where you were just like, yeah, there it is.
Oh man, Hannibal Lecter's introduction is so creepy. Where you have like, the people acting creepy, like what you expect, and then when you get to him and he's just standing there silently, like unmoving.
Yeah. No, he seems really larger than life, and I think we're trying to make the audience think that that there's not a shred of humanity in him when we first meet him, and then we're gonna be weirdly taken in along with Clarice as to how much of a real defined like whole person he feels. And then we'll be reminded later again, oh yeah, this guy is complete and utter monster.
Oh yeah. No, it works really well because he's, he is a psychologist, right? So it's like he knows how to play on that in a negative light. And he can kind of turn that on and off. And like even in their first few lines together, you can already see him starting to get into her head a little bit.
Yeah. I this is one of the uh, triumphs of this movie for me is it makes you nearly sympathize with both serial killers on some level without like celebrating them, without humanizing them to a point of absurdity where like there's still people who obviously have lost their humanity or never had it to begin with, but it's more complicated than there's they're like just complete monsters that don't feel anything. Like his respect is genuine, and Buffalo Bill's clear compassion for his victims that seeps in that he's trying to pretend like he doesn't have, like that's clearly it's clearly genuine. The fact that he can work past it and still mutilate them is, makes him a horrifying, terrible, again, monster, of course. I'm not saying these are anything like anything these people are doing is okay, or that there's not something really, really wrong with them, but there is still some residue of humanity left in them.
Yeah, it's interesting. I wonder if that's just a Thomas Harris thing, the guy who wrote the books, because that's a big part of Red Dragon. The main plot of that is like the serial killer starts dating the girl he wants to kill, and then he has to juggle with like, can I do it or not?
Yeah, Robert says Lecter is pure evil, but he's also pretty cool, and you kind of root for him at the end. I mean, I think you can be both, and that's exactly right, and that's where a lot of the entertainment value comes from in a movie that is otherwise really dark and disturbing, where you don't. I mean, I don't think I full on, as you say, root for him, but boy, you get close.
I don't know if I would use that terminology. Like, I enjoy watching him. I don't know if I root for him. I find
there's a part of you
Lecter...
that wants him to. When we do the big escape sequence that Dem in his interviews calls the movie within the movie. When we do his big escape sequence, there is a part of me that wants him to get out just because it's so impressive that he's managing it, and I'm buying that he's managing it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, he kind of deserves to get away with this just because he's so freaking good at it.
Yeah, and for me, like, I'm just so fascinated in like just how cool and intricate his plan is, and just like how it pays off. It's the whole face thing is so cool.
Yeah, it's great. And the first time you see it, I don't think you call that.
No, and it's funny because every time I rewatch it, I'm like how do I not? Like it looks like I can see Anthony Hopkins in the face, and yet the movie. I mean, it's like we always say, like movies are a like a magic trick, right?
It's misdirection.
The job of a director is to misdirect, right?
No, that's exactly right. Real quick, let me say something else this movie gets away with that a lot of movies don't, that just drives me crazy, is heads taking up the whole frame. It's a really effective device choice in this movie because, again, it keeps us so in Clarice's head the whole time, and also a lot of first-person POV shots, which very often I resist and can feel really, really gimmicky. And apparently the actors on set weren't sure that it was going to work and thought it was an odd choice from Dem, and they all felt silly doing it for the first couple of scenes they did it in.
Yeah, I can see that.
But it really works. It's super effective. I mean, this is a really great example of understanding the rules before you break them, right? And breaking them with purpose.
No, I think when you get the right performance and you like kind of lock in that way.
I don't know if you're in exactly the same place I am, but I just got the.
He's about to do it. You just did it.
Okay, here, I'll pause for just a second.
But no, if you have the right performance, like it can be really powerful. Like this movie does it super well. That movie Pearl from last year has like a 15-minute monologue sequence that's like that locked in. That's really good. You get the right actors and it works.
You've seen the Keanu Reeves Constantine movie. There's a scene in that where the character Balthazar steals that. He does that, and the thing, and then he follows it up with the line "finger licking good."
I don't remember that. That is pretty funny.
I have expected Hannibal Lecter to go finger licking good.
That is one of those things that gets parodied a lot, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and we obviously have to talk about the obvious influence with this movie and how like it's funny that I've never like talked about this because I've probably brought up Hannibal Lecter like more than a dozen times in videos where you'll get to the Hannibal Lecter scene with some prisoner that our hero has to go to get information from. Like we steal this all the time with stuff.
Well, and Batman especially owes
yes.
a lot to this movie. Not even just that. Like I think in terms
well, you almost had a Joker Hannibal Lecter scene in the Batman that was cut out.
Yeah, no, exactly. Which is pulling from that Long Halloween thing, which is just this.
Yep, it's just this.
And but I think even outside of that, like I think in terms of how a lot of Batman writers write mysteries, like it's this. I feel like just like in how we kind of solve the mystery, even beyond just the Hannibal Lecter aspect.
I forgot we had even brief flashbacks.
Yeah, there's a couple. We don't overdo it, but there's like 2 or 3. Because we'll get one later on in the funeral home.
Yeah, and I don't know how necessary they are, but they help. They're effective. You maybe want to at least see his face. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because his death is so profound for her, and I don't need like whole scenes to fully appreciate why she cares about her father. That's case by case for me. There are some things where sometimes the character herself is not drawn enough for me to really appreciate her relationships with anybody, and so I find myself going, I wish I'd seen like whole sequences of her with her father. But with this, she's drawn so well and her motivations are so clear that I don't need that. My imagination fills in the blanks really easily.
No, and I think you get so much understanding out of that character just from the shot of her seeing her dad as a kid to the shot of her crying at the car to the immediate cut of her shooting at the gun range. That tells you so much.
It gives you a clear link, yeah.
Exactly.
No, or at least it's setting the stage for it. It's giving you the seeds. I think on a first viewing, you wouldn't really make the connection, except to understand that we're so in her head that flashback is probably not just for our benefit. That she's probably thinking about that as she's shooting.
Mm-hmm.
And so
I think even if you don't know that her dad's dead, you could maybe watch that and say like, oh, she's trying to live up to her father, who was a cop.
Oh, that's a good call. Yeah.
So there's some glue there. But we also
unless it turns out that he was a horrible person and she's angry with him and that's why she's shooting right then. But then the memory would probably be different. That's probably not the memory we'd be getting right then.
No, it'd be her being like, I'm gonna one of these days, Clarice. Boom. Straight to the moon.
One of these days.
No, and then we have just like a really good bit of setup that you don't initially realize is set up, where right after that gun range scene you have the shot of them clearing the building and she walks in and doesn't clear her corners, so she gets killed, and that's
perfect foreshadowing.
It's just such good foreshadowing to help make the climax tenser.
Yes. No, I noticed that this time around because I kind of made mental note of the clearing the corner scene because I didn't remember that.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was kind of a sad moment for her, and then you get to the end and she's having to go into a building by herself, and you gotta love, I know we're getting way ahead of ourselves now, but you gotta love that we have a real clear reason that she would continue going through that house by herself, having no backup, because a lot of things get that wrong, and just for the sake of drama, you got to make your character an idiot, so she'll throw herself in danger for no good reason. It's like she doesn't have backup. Those guys are at the wrong house in a totally different place. So
no, that scene where the door opens and
she's got to save this girl. It's imminent danger.
that scene is such a gut punch, and part of why it's so effective is that we have like all of these little seeds that we're peppering throughout the movie, where you go like, okay, like she is not really prepared for this.
I want to say that if I'd been an adult in 1991 and I saw this movie, I would likely have been not predicted that and been surprised by that. And that is one of the things, and it's not the movie's fault. That is one of those things where too many movies influenced by this, and this being so foundational for the genre and for thrillers in general,
a lot of things use that now.
It hurts that scene, yeah. Like, because I hadn't seen this in like 18 years, and I called it this time, where I was like, oh yeah, she's gonna be at the wrong house, or she's gonna be at the right house, and they're gonna be at the wrong house. Dark Knight does it.
Mm-hmm. That's true. But I just think for me personally, like, none of them hit the way that this one does. Like, this one...
No, it's still super effective. You're absolutely right.
Mm-hmm. I also think that this is a nice bit of character work here, because we'll talk about a little bit later with Hannibal Lecter, where he talks about how, she's kind of middle, more like worker class upbringing. And, we have this little bit where she pulls out the jack in order to get the garage door open. So you're kind of seeing some of that in play a little bit more. It's that character building without saying it, right? Like, it's just all through action.
Yeah, and I like the little subtle bits of humor peppered throughout, where she is, again, a like fully realized character. So she comes off kind of dry because she's trying to be professional. Again, Scully has got to be basically just 100% based on this character.
There's no way she's not, right?
And I had never had that thought before, but she's just Clarice. Yeah. But I really like that moment.
I was like, oh, it's Scully.
I really like that moment with that's the thing, is like Jodie Foster could have played her. I really like that moment with Clarice outside with the guy before she comes in, when she's like, call this number if
he's got the little sticky note.
Yeah, like if this falls down and I can't get out, or I get crushed or something, like she's got kind of a smile where like, that would be really crappy. I hope that doesn't happen. Like, just the absurdity of going in here by yourself and investigating.
Well, what I like too is because we're already in that point where we're kind of thinking about like, audience reaction in that way. So like, it feels like the movie's on my page, because I'm kind of laughing to myself watching, going like, like what if the jack falls over and she gets stuck in here, and then like immediately as I think that, she turns and is like, okay, if this falls and I get stuck in here,
yeah,
call this number.
It puts you in her place at every possible turn.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Chewbacca's Lover put in a $5 super chat. I'm going to go ahead and try to read these super chats real quick. Here's the creepy head, which was modeled after one of the producers or someone, I think. Somebody that worked on the movie.
Oh, that's fun.
That's somebody's head, yeah. We'll talk about the dead body later, with the butterfly in her throat. That whole thing is crazy. I didn't know that was a real person. That is an actress through that scene. Chewbacca's Lover, $5 super chat. Surprised you haven't brought up how much Batman comics pull from this movie. We actually did just after he put that in.
Oh, funny. And that was a big thing that obviously I knew we had to talk about.
Sure. He says Arkham Asylum in the comics certainly is. Yeah. And then just, particularly with portrayals of the Joker, we go back to Hannibal Lecter all the time. With like,
well, and I think R.I.P. is visually looking at this movie. Maybe not. No, I think it's R.I.P. where he's got the kind of slicked back widow's peak kind of hair. I think.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's been a while since I've read it. But
yeah.
If I'm thinking of the right book, I think we sometimes go to that. When Arkham, of course, is a reference to Lovecraft, but we do a lot with this movie in that too.
Yeah. Yeah, and just in like, long corridors, labyrinthian layout for Asylum. Like, you get the sense that this place is pretty big.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. No, and I'm sure even Dark Knight was looking at this with the Joker Batman scene in the interrogation room.
Yeah, that's a good call.
Obviously, they're very different scenes, but I'd be shocked if Nolan wasn't thinking about this at least a little bit.
Well, and I hadn't had this thought before. There's maybe some Hannibal Lecter in more modern depictions of Hugo Strange.
Yeah.
Because Hugo Strange is so obsessed with the psychology of Batman, and Lecter gets very interested in the psychology of the woman that is interviewing him. I mean, they're kind of different. You know, it's for different reasons. Hannibal Lecter doesn't like want to be Clarice Starling or anything. But
and some of that is like from before this movie, but I don't know about the novel. But I'm sure we definitely build more off of it based on this.
I like how deliberate the movie is about lighting and camera angles and just how different each of the 3 interviews are shot.
Mm-hmm. Well, especially because, you know, you're making a movie and you have to make just 2 people standing apart from each other interesting cinematically, right?
No, that's true. But it creates a
job.
real clear visual progression in their relationship.
Mm-hmm.
There's both this descent into darkness where like it's getting more disturbing as it goes along, as she's learning more and more about like how much he understands the psychology of this other serial killer, but also how close she has to get to him in order to get what she needs from him. But
no,
also
we're finally like locked in, and it's like, okay, I'm giving you everything. That's when it's just the headshots, where you're just cutting back and forth between headshots between the 2 of them talking.
Yeah, and it becomes this symbiotic relationship almost.
Mm-hmm. No, it's like you finally kind of broken in it, and it's just them.
Let me read this other super chat to Victor Herman. $10 super chat. Thanks, man. What do you guys think of the look of this movie? I find the naturalistic lighting and presentation go a long way to making the scary parts of the story feel real and not gimmicky. Yeah, it could have been... I mean, gimmicky is the right word. It could have been really sensational. It could have been really over the top and operatic. I think it is still... there's still a real distinct visual style. It's artistic, but it's not quote-unquote stylized.
No, it's minimalist in its look, but it works really well.
So my wife looked over at me during the scene and said, "Okay, so what I'm learning is the serial killer is picking his victims based on poor taste in music."
And inability to sing like with the lyrics. In parts of it, she's like completely off.
I couldn't believe she said that.
That is really funny. I don't even know what song that is. American Girl, I guess.
The other thing I was gonna say earlier, I just remember this: the progression between with the 3 interviews is while she's having to descend into the darkness with him in order to get what she needs. There's the other thing that is progressing though is this mutual respect between them.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And that's the thing that kind of almost humanizes him for the audience, or at least gives you like a glimmer, a residue of humanity, of humanizing him.
Yeah, and then you're able to understand why he's not just going after her, but at the end.
Yeah, and what I was going to say earlier to the commenter that said he is, I think it was Robert, he is pure evil, is I think you can, there are elements of what we would usually recognize as a well put together respectable human being that you can still have as a horrible monster, which is part of what makes it difficult to spot them out, right? There's a lot of things that you could admire about Hannibal Lecter if only he wasn't, a cannibal, and he wasn't a master manipulator. Yeah. He's still capable of respect.
He was able to get as far in that career as he did, as a well-respected psychiatrist.
Well, that's what makes him so scary, right? Is you can understand the human condition without being part of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
This is one of the more realistic and believable scenes in the movie, I think. One of the things that really gives it a lot of credibility is just the way the serial killer gets his victims, because there's a lot of serial killers that lure their victims precisely this way in real life.
It's the Ted Bundy thing. I also really like the choice of the kind of nocturnal predator thing, that he's got the night vision goggles that we do a lot with.
Oh, it didn't occur to me he was wearing them there already.
Yeah, that's what he's spying on her with. Because that's what I like about it, is that it's always when he's homing in on somebody. So it really gives this image of, like I said, a nocturnal predator stalking its prey.
Okay, I don't know if this is on purpose and I'm just noticing it now, but that shirt or blouse or whatever that she was wearing that he just cuts off, the pattern on it makes it look almost like cuts of meat.
Oh, I didn't think of that. I was thinking it looked like candy corn.
Okay. I don't think it's on purpose, but that's disturbing. It makes it more disturbing that I had that thought.
I mean, I'm more disturbed that it looks like candy corn to me. That's way worse than just cuts of meat.
Well, yeah, but considering what he wants to do to her,
No, Buffalo Bill would be irredeemable if he ate candy corn. I still believe he can be redeemed at this point.
I'm pretty sure he's irredeemable anyway, right?
No, if he was it eats the candy corn or else it gets the hose again, then he'd be irredeemable.
You're that's a bridge too far. You can do anything else you want to be, but you make me eat candy corn.
That guy is worse.
Austin has this whole thing with candy corn.
It's the worst candy. Whenever you're a kid and you go trick-or-treating, there's always people make their own little baggies of them. It's awful.
So yeah, Crawford is a really distinct and immediately memorable character to me. He is patterned off of the then actual director of the FBI.
Oh, okay. I'm not sure who it would be at this point. I guess this is probably shortly after Bush was the head of the FBI, and I'm not sure.
Or maybe it was a retired one. I can't remember, but it was a beloved, major important, head of the FBI, and director, and he spent time with him and patterned his performance partly off of that. And again, and you know what? Skinner and the X-Files probably also based on this character. And he gets a fair amount of screen time with Scully. It all comes together now. It all makes sense. And this movie has, of course, that same that same tone and atmosphere that I'm always praising X-Files for, where it feels. And we talked about this with The Exorcist too. Another thing that those two movies really have in common is it feels a little bit documentary. It feels a little bit like you just put a camera in the scene and what you're looking at is really happening. Maybe a tad less with this than Exorcist.
That's what I was going to say. I think a little bit less, but there is definitely that aspect. I think in just how minimalist it is.
This is going to sound silly. I think that you have that aspect more in scenes that don't involve Lecter. When we're outside, when we're in Buffalo Bill's place, the grit of all of that, makes it feel like an X-Files episode.
So it's almost in a way about what you're saying, all of this is everything in The Exorcist, and everything with Hannibal Lecter is all of the actual actual exorcism part of The Exorcist. We have the head spinning around and stuff.
Yeah. That's exactly right. And there's a realistic component to that too, of course, but it's all in the performance and in the psychology.
Yeah, no, definitely.
And that's not a criticism for the way it's shot at all. I think it needs to feel a little larger than life because that's how Clarice has to be looking at him.
No, definitely. I mean,
so you go more
she's not
stylized
against,
with
like, an
that
actual
because
villain.
she's looking at this grandiose figure that, again, she's developing not an affinity for, but a respect for. Even as you can't help but be appalled by who he is and what you're looking at.
Yeah, well, I think it works too because she's not like a full FBI agent, which we haven't really talked about, I guess, that much. But
that's a really good point. She's got no experience
in training. Yeah,
she's thrown into this because Crawford is a master strategist, and it's weirdly kind of a tete-a-tete initially between him and Lecter, and they never get screen time together. But Lecter is like intimately familiar with Crawford.
Yeah,
and he's like, "Oh, Crawford sent you." Like names him by name. He immediately knows why she's there, and even she doesn't know because we have that kind of Nick Fury level of compartmentalization.
But they're both using her at that point.
Yeah,
and
that's exactly right.
Kind of build up to. She can kind of work with the boys.
Well, and I think it's making a good case for why sometimes that compartmentalization is necessary, where it's not vilifying it the way Winter Soldier does. Because with Winter Soldier, it's real extreme, and Fury's compartmentalized things to the point of, he's kind of the grandmaster and moving chess pieces around. And with this, it's that Crawford knows if she knows too much, Lecter's going to sniff her out immediately. And it's really sophisticated, right? Because it doesn't take him long to know why she's there, even though she doesn't, like I said a minute ago, where he's like, he sent you here so that he can learn more about Buffalo Bill and maybe catch him. And she doesn't even know that. But if Crawford hadn't done that and had sent her there knowing everything, Lecter not just would have sniffed her out, but wouldn't have developed the fondness and the respect for her that he does.
Well, and yeah, one of the first things that she's told before she goes in is don't give any personal details, keep it on him.
Yeah.
And the first thing that happens is he's like, your badge looks wrong, and she's like, well, I'm in training, and that's the
you're
window
telling him
in.
stuff. Yeah.
That's the window in, but that's ultimately what helps her get through.
That's true. No, she does have to do that in order to make him care enough to help her. And I was going to ask you this, how ambiguous do you think the movie is about Lecter's motivations in helping her catch the killer? How much of it is he knows, he has an idea that he might have a better chance at escape if he helps with this, and how much of it is he really does develop an affinity for her and kind of wants to see her succeed?
I think it's both of them.
I think it must be.
I don't know how because I'm not sure how ambiguous it is, because I think by the time you get the picture, you know that it is genuine interest in her, and the fact that he calls her at her graduation, I think, is part of that too. But I also do agree that I think he is, at least initially, thinking about it as a means to escape.
By that third interview, he has to legitimately be kind of interested in seeing her succeed. I think.
No, I agree.
Or at least he's giving her a test and he's curious to see if she'll pass it.
Well, yeah, and at that point he doesn't have to give her back the binder. That's what helps her get the answer she needs.
So this is super realistic and a thing we still hardly ever see. People crowded around a deceased body that's been decomposing and is gonna smell absolutely horrible, and they just live with the smell and nobody recoils. In a lot of things, right? Or they'll be like, oh, that smells bad, but then they kind of press on. I can't think of anything I've ever seen even after this that does the whatever the goop is under the nose so that you can stand the smell.
Hmm.
That must be a real thing they do.
It would have to be, I would think. Because you're right, like it is a very movie thing of, well, you just look at it and you don't acknowledge that.
Yeah.
But no, everything, like just how this is shot, like it's not gratuitous at all, and it's way more effective by the fact that you're not getting a good look at what the body looks like.
Yeah, it's letting you use your imagination. It's disturbing, and then when it does finally, in these kinds of scenes, when they do finally start showing things, it's necessary to understand what's happening, and the timing is really good. You know, it's almost like the importance of comedic timing, like the dramatic timing of some of these shots, where you're getting like little bits and glimpses of it, all of the foliage and stuff around her arms, and then eventually we'll get a back off shot, and she looks almost like she's mutated or something. She's been her body's been so ruined by this guy. And less is really more with this stuff. There's a lot of shots in this movie with like props and set dressing, etc., that clearly production designers spent days and weeks and months on for like the 10 seconds that we glimpse them in the movie.
Yeah, there's so many little details in Buffalo Bill's house that like flash by in a second that like I wish I could just go onto that set and see everything that was on there and get like a full idea of exactly what his house looked like.
Can you believe
It's so fascinating.
this body right now is a real actress who is acting as a body?
That's crazy. I did not know that, and it's especially weird because it's not like you're getting like full shots of her.
Not more than one or two. I think there's one toward the end that's backed off where you can tell that she's like from the back where she's totally naked.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this shot.
Oh yes, you're right. Yeah.
Because you have to see the skin removed on the back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess I forgot that we had like a more full off shot.
But yeah,
it is crazy because they would have had to go through all that makeup.
Yeah, that woman allowed
prosthetics.
herself to be made up that way, and had to, in the interview with the director, he talks about how she had to train her throat to be able to have tweezers down there pulling that out of her, like all of that she really did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you'd think that you would have just like a cutaway shot.
I also thought it was so cool of Dem, the director, to bring her up as an unsung hero in this, where like you're not even thinking that's an actress, but like it is, and she's got a really difficult thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And
it is nice when directors remember to kind of praise everyone for
I thought it was
stuff
super
like
cool.
that.
Yeah, well, and he doesn't bring up everybody. Like that's one of the first things that came to him when he's talking about like unsung heroes with the movie. He's like, here's a thing nobody knows that we should be talking about. And I was like, that's, I don't know. He seemed to have a lot of respect for everybody that they put in this movie, and it just feels like a massive labor of love sort of project.
Mm-hmm. No, that's awesome. No one was
just
getting punched on set.
And also just all the reverence that he seemed to have for the institution of the FBI is kind of endearing. However you might feel about, any, and I don't know a lot about the FBI, but just, any particular people that have ever been involved with that organization or decisions they've made or that kind of thing. They're trying to catch serial killers and stuff. Like indisputably they've done some good work, right? Like
that's one of the funniest lines in this movie, by the way.
Sorry, go ahead.
Ignore him. He doesn't have a PhD, or he's not a PhD.
So this is one of the things that, and I know you don't know a lot about the X-Files, but this is one of those things that I brought up to Sarah while we were watching it, where I was like, it's really odd that we've got the Scully prequel where she's already met the lone gunman, because Mulder knows them. She didn't know them before. These guys feel like 2 of the 3 lone gunmen, except they're obsessed with bugs instead of being computer hackers.
Well, I was thinking that this scene feels right out of the X-Files, even though, like, I didn't know that because I've only seen a few episodes.
Yeah, there's this recurring trio in the X-Files that actually got a short-lived spin-off series of their own that was terrible.
No.
Called The Lone Gunman. Yeah, but it's weird because the pilot of that show does a plane crash into the Twin Towers like 3 weeks before 9/11 happened.
What?
Yes. And the whole thing is about conspiracy theories.
Oh my god.
Yeah. But yeah, it was this like trio of conspiracy theorists.
It's like they knew.
That's on YouTube. I will send you a link to that.
Yeah, it sounds fascinating.
It's kind of spine-tingling watching it, because you're like, how did this show predict that? Like, yeah, it's crazy.
No, I've watched like compilation videos of like just kind of weird things that have lined up like that, and like obviously I don't believe in the conspiracy of it, but it is weird. Like, it does make you stop and go like, whoa.
No, that's not me implying anything with crazy conspiracy theories.
All I know is that
but it's a bizarre coincidence.
9/11. It was Mulder and Scully.
So once again, like with the girl in the pit, once again we're setting up things before we full on show them to you, and that makes it eerier, right?
Yeah, no, and every time I rewatch it, I'm like, oh, I'm about to get the awesome lotion scene, and then I'm like, oh, no, that comes later.
All she's got to do is try to jump up without the rope.
Exactly. That's all you got to do. But nobody was chanting "Rise," so she couldn't do it.
So you really got to put yourself into the time and place when this movie came out. Not only was it unusual to have a female lead in this kind of role, of course, where your kind of cop hero is a woman and she's the one that's going to have to save the damsel in distress. But even though you do have a kidnapped girl, you have a damsel in distress, she also doesn't act like a typical one. She tries as hard as possible to not be a victim.
Mm-hmm.
She's not, down there just whimpering, and we don't overcompensate with anything either, right? Like,
she still doesn't get herself out of it, but she is trying things.
Yeah, that's true, and she's also not, too cool for school and pretending like this is not a scary situation. Like, she is a victim. She's got to be played
like sarcastically talking to Buffalo.
No, she's not. Oh, this isn't scary. I don't have any problem with this. Like that, that would be overcompensating.
What, you put me in a well? That's not scary.
Yeah, or if Jodie Foster was able to strong arm any man in the movie that gives her crap.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she's still the underdog. She's There's still what, speaking of subtitles, I forgot to ever turn mine on.
Oh my god,
I can't believe that. I never do that. I've watched almost half this movie and I wasn't looking at the dialogue. I never do that.
It puts the subtitles on its film, or else it gets the hose again.
Oh god.
It's especially funny because Robert was like, "Oh, I can't get subtitles." And you were like, "Well, I use my remote." He didn't even put them on.
Okay, so I said 3 interviews. I guess it's more than that, but I always remember it as kind of like 3 big set pieces.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it helps that like the first 2 are smaller.
Or I shouldn't say set pieces, because we're in the same location for the first 2, but we changed the lighting. Like, it's at night, and you've only got the TV providing illumination, and you get this, like, sterile, kind of white light in the first time she's there.
Mm-hmm. No, because you have the first one where he's not really giving in, but he does when, And then you have the second one where he's giving her a little bit more, and then you have this one where she's going to lie to him so that he gives more information and kind of schools him. And then obviously you'll get the final one once it's been taken over.
I also love how thoughtful the filmmaking and the storytelling is around some of the hurdles that they had to jump over just in logistics of set building and stuff. I didn't know until research today that originally they were gonna have just a standard cell with bars even in the asylum at first. And the reason they went with the plexiglass is because apparently it was just kind of a nightmare to shoot through the bars and get the performances they wanted to and get consistency and probably consistency in camera placement and stuff, I would imagine. And so they did that, and then they went, oh, wait a minute, or they made that choice, and then the director said, well, wait a minute, he's got to be able to smell her, because that's a big plot point, and he's not gonna be able to smell through that glass. So they put the holes in it because they were like, well, you would need that anyway to breathe. So then then Anthony Hopkins like comes up with sniffing directly up to the holes like that.
Well, it makes it so much creepier, yeah, because the holes are like way up here, and she's also short. She's like there, and he's able to like smell it. It makes it so much creepier.
Yeah,
but also with
those are the kind of details that you don't get in a script.
Mm-hmm. But also with the glass, like I feel like you need that so that they can get close to each other.
Well, yes, that's true too. And if it had been just the bars, they wouldn't have been that close to each other. Because you wouldn't buy it. I mean, he's so lanky and he stretches out, and we've already been told. I think even before she goes there in the first place, that he's been like grabbing people and biting them and eating them while they're still alive and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Well, and also with the glass, it's part of what makes it creepier because everyone before him has bars. So it's like, they all have this, but Hannibal Lecter's different. He's glass.
Yeah. Yes, you just get there, you're like, okay, well, if he's got a special cell, and they're like making certain accommodations for him, it seems like, maybe just to, with like letting him paint and stuff. I wonder if like
they make him watch TV shows he hates.
Yeah. They make him watch someone constantly preaching at him and telling him he's going to go to hell. Because it's evangelical television. You know what he's listening to.
Oh, true. Yeah, that's what it would be. Yeah.
It's going to be Bible thumping, and also send us money so that we can keep telling you how you're going to hell. But no, I'm sorry, I was wrong. It's not 3, it's 4, and it's not like this is at least 4.
It is 4.
It's not like this is a minor one. This is her backstory. This is where the title of the film comes from.
Well, no, that's the next one.
Oh, is it? Oh, is it?
Yeah. Yeah, because that's like the big final where she's giving him everything, and it's just.
Oh, that's right. All we're getting here is her father has died. I'm jumping the gun.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that because she mentioned
you're
the
jumping the James Gum, Cap.
I'm sorry. Did you just call me dumb?
No, I said you're jumping the James Gum.
It's not James. It's James. It's
James Gum. Yeah, but James is weird.
No, but it is weird. It is weird, but that doesn't mean you can just change his name.
Yeah, but his name's stupid. Considering it's a stupid-ass name, I wouldn't change it.
Sorry, I don't want to get off the beaten path here, but you just reminded me. Rosenbaum did that this week on Talkville. They were talking about a Smallville episode with a kid whose name is Vance, which I always thought was a weird name. I'm like, is that even a name? And Rosenbaum didn't like it. He was like, Vance, or I don't know, let's just call him Vince. And then the whole rest of the episode, he just called him Vince.
I feel like I've heard the name Vance come up in things before.
I couldn't decide if he just thought it was a typo and didn't hear it right in the episode, or if he just really hated them. But yes, of course, this is one of the big scenes that everybody quotes and that everybody parodies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, my friends and I all yell the put the lotion or put the effing lotion in the basket to each other like every time we hang out.
So, Austin, tell me if I have the right read on this. Is the idea that he has to objectify literally his victims in using the pronoun it, in order to like distance himself from them and pretend like they're not people, because he like actually kind of feels bad about what he's doing in a weird way? Because I think the whole idea is supposed to be the reason he wants to be a woman is to get like as far away from himself as he can, because he like actually hates and detests himself. And then the very thing he's doing to make himself get to that is what makes him most detestable.
Yeah, I think that is the case, because she's yelling details about herself and he's getting more and more upset, and you can like see his face kind of visually change with that. Also, because I'm talking to you, Cab.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, I think the actor who plays Buffalo Bill is one of the bad guys in Jurassic House.
Oh, is he really?
If I remember correctly, I think he's like the main guy that's like snatching up the dinosaurs on the island.
Oh, crazy. That's also a guy that seems to disappear in stuff. Because I was looking at a... oh, sorry, I want to look really closely at this pen, because I have a big question about the pen.
Yes.
You probably know what I'm going to say with this.
Yeah, what is it?
Well, I don't really know how he gets his hands on it.
Well, it's just because he leaves the pen.
Well, yes, I know, but he's trussed up and can't move. So the question is, I think this must be what it is. First of all, are they in his cell?
They are.
Okay. That was the thing I wasn't 100% sure of. But, like, he's trussed up right now, so he's going to accidentally leave the pen in the cell, and then when they take him out, now he's got access to the pen. Is that what it is?
Mm-hmm.
Or
yeah, it's just that he leaves it there, so when they, like, release him, the pen's just still there.
Okay. Because at first, I thought it was just, like, a gimme, where it's like, Hannibal Lecter is so impressive that somehow he does a magic trick from within this getup he's in.
No, I had
that
like
smushes his nose.
I had a real like this messed with my brain moment where we were watching it last night, because I was like, oh, this is the scene where they have to take him out of the cell and to search his cell, but
see, that's Roger Corman. He's the head of the FBI.
Oh, okay, yeah. I was like, this is the scene where they have to take him out of the cell to search it, but they don't want him to know that they're searching it, so they like are doing like other stuff. And then I went, wait a minute, that's Red Dragon. That's not this movie. It's a whole different movie. That doesn't even make sense in context.
Okay, so this is why I'm still confused about it.
Mm-hmm.
Just connective tissue between scenes. Okay, we don't see him ever get pulled out of this, and he's in it right now. The getup where he's in a straitjacket and he's being wheeled around. So all we saw was he's tied up like this, right? And the guy that runs the asylum leaves his pen. We don't even see him walk away. And then the very next thing that you see is he's just being wheeled around, and we'll find out later that he somehow stole that pen. I just don't know if he ever got taken off the cart, even though they were inside his cell.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Well, I think it's just there's like an implication of we've jumped a little bit forward in time. So like I think he's been off of this between now and then.
That's the only way it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I'll assume that's what it is. And it's not a big deal or anything, but it's the only thing in the movie that I don't see the breadcrumbs for.
Mm-hmm.
Because the movie does such a good job of setting up so that you can retrace everything back. With all the details of the serial killer. It's a wonderful detective movie, of course. All the detective work follows. Everything he does later to escape you see every element of it. You see all the details. You know exactly how he managed everything. The one thing I don't totally know is how he got that pen.
Yeah, I think it's just supposed to be that like some time has passed and he hasn't been in this gurney thing the entire time.
Ian Nixick, $2 super chat. Which is scarier in your eyes, this or Seven? Seven I've only seen once, and immediately I'm not remembering a ton about it. I loved it when I watched it. I've just seen a lot of stuff since then. And I remember that movie really kind of creeping me out.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I can say until I sit down and watch it again. Have you seen that?
I have, but only with my mom, and like she was talking to me the entire time. So like
I wish we'd done that for
what I've
Request.
seen. So just from what I've seen, like it's this, but I need to give that a fair shake. But I did like it.
From my memories watching it, I think I actually probably give it to 7, but I need to sit down and watch it again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just need to rewatch it without my mom talking to me the whole time.
Okay, so sometimes I'll ask Austin if he thinks a scene is accomplishing what it's setting out to do, and people will assume that I'm criticizing it. I am not doing that when I ask you this. I'm just curious about what your feelings about this are. Yeah. Do you think, because this is a place where I could understand someone not fully buying a thing, and I think it works, so I'll just go on record to say that, but I'm just wondering if you do. And it's 1991. It's kind of a different time. It's a somewhat more, I don't know, for lack of a better word, like formal and conservative time. But this woman is a senator and has to have a very tough skin. Do you buy that he gets under her skin the way he does with what he says to her?
Yes.
Okay.
100%. Because yes, you have to have a tough skin, but I think that would break anyone if you're a parent. Like I don't know that.
Especially if your daughter has been kidnapped.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Like if you just said it, you know, and her daughter was like, I don't know, in college or whatever, probably not. But yeah, in this circumstance, absolutely.
And of course, that plays really nicely into this theme of strong women finding their place in the world and finding a way to find dominance in their own lives. In kind of a man's world. Why do you think he does that in that scene?
I think he's just messing with her. Like it's just that's what he does. He's getting under people's skin, and he's a psychologist and he knows how to do it. He's having a lark basically.
Yeah.
And the line at the end where he goes, "And Senator, nice suit," and he winks at her is such a Joker moment.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that moment actually.
Like I can hear Mark Hamill's delivery of that in the animated series,
and that's so screwed up too. Because the serial killer was trying to make her daughter into a suit. That's the line, right? Like, that's why he says that? Oh, yeah, that's effed up. Thanks for bringing that to my attention.
No, but it's messed up in the way that a lot of Joker lines are messed up, right? Where, like, it's funny and it's messed up.
Yeah. No, that's exactly right.
But no, I imagine that the animated series with some of Joker's lines had to have been looking at that.
Sure, yeah, just the taunting criminal mastermind.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right, he must...
Who's for Chinese? I keep going to like a Wakanda voice, but...
Well, it's I know this is a popular word these days, but it's just the narcissist thing, right? It's that he's better than everyone. He sees himself as almost godlike because of his understanding of human psychology and his powers of perception. The difference between him and most narcissists is he earns it some percentage of the way.
Yeah.
I don't mean to say it's okay that he acts the way he does and that he thinks he's better than everyone. I mean that a lot of narcissists, it's embarrassing. Where it's like you think you're the smartest person in the room and you're actually very plain and normal and not exceptional in any way. And this guy is obviously, genius level IQ, and
He's like an evil Sherlock Holmes in that way.
That's what I was about. Yep, that's exactly right.
Yeah, we even have that bit where he's like, I can tell by your shoes that you work, or that you grew up in like a more working class environment.
Well, and he'll show off just to intimidate people. He does that when she first walks in, where he's like, you wear this kind of perfume, and sometimes you wear this, but not today.
But
that's
not
that's one of his
today,
that's one of his best line deliveries, man.
Well, and even here, and I mean, if you've ever had a teacher, you've had a teacher talk to you.
I was about to say, he's giving
this,
like an evil lecture here.
So like you can look at it as like Sherlock talking to like a Watson, right? Where he's like, okay, like this is what the person's doing. You can't follow along, can you? Like think about it this way.
Yeah,
yeah. Everyone that's had a teacher has
condescending,
had this moment,
but
yeah.
he earns it to some degree because he's on this whole other level.
Well, and it's condescending, but again, in that like teaching way, right? Where it's not like I'm talking down to you; it's I'm trying to help you look for the right thing because you're not looking at your narrow view is kind of keeping.
You're right. He's saying
result.
you're better than this. You need to get focused and look at the right details because I know you can do what I'm doing.
I know you can figure it out. Okay, think about it from this angle.
So is she almost like a? Is she almost a protege to him?
To an extent, I think in this scene, definitely.
To just an extent. And that's another thing we do with Batman villains in Batman, right? It's like, you're supposed to be the world's greatest detective. You're better than this. How are you not looking? Like we do that even sometimes with, especially these days, with more sadistic versions of the Riddler.
Mm-hmm. Well, and because you mentioned the Joker,
he's like the Riddler in the way he gives clues, like the anagram thing and all that. That's very Riddler.
Yeah, it's very just 60s Batman. It's whatever with a machine gun, Clarice. I can't remember what the line is, but
okay.
Anyway.
So sorry, the craziest behind the scenes thing I found out about this movie. And I just happened to do a little bit more research than I usually do with these commentaries because I got this great set with Silence of the Lambs and I wanted to watch some of these features. So Austin, they're in the middle of one of the most intense, most important scenes in the movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember exactly what moment this happened, but it is during specifically this sequence where she's talking about the lambs and the screaming and where we get the title. We're finally there. I'm not jumping the gum anymore. And she and during the scene, and remember this is 1991. Somebody's cell phone goes off.
No.
Yeah, in the middle of the scene. And the both of them keep character. They wait for the cell phone to go off. They're both kind of waiting to see what Dem is going to do. And the director says, finally, continue, please. And she gets back into her next line, and they finish the scene, and it's what's in the movie.
That's crazy.
Isn't it? That's the take that's in the film.
And then the guy whose phone rang, he got eaten by Anthony Hopkins after they filmed this.
I've never heard of anything like that.
That's crazy. That's really impressive that they were able to kind of keep that momentum.
Isn't that incredible?
This is such an intense scene that's building and building.
She's
like
nearly got tears in her eyes.
Yeah, I just imagine her trying to hold that.
And I know it's super famous that everybody talks about, his like peering right into the viewer's soul, but like this is one of the most effective shots in anything. Again, in getting you in the head of the protagonist.
No, I was imagining this shot in the theater last night, and all I could imagine was like the 1984 like kind of theater looking shot. We have the Big Brother face on the screen. Like it's so just like big and all encompassing.
Yeah, and in that that interview that I watched with the director, he talks about how they intentionally wanted the background of the scene to just disappear.
Mhm. No, that's the right choice.
Yeah. And so one of the most epic moments of the movie is also one of the most minimalistic.
Mhm. No, and
You
if
know,
either of
that
those
costs you
actors,
nothing. Like there's nothing like there's nothing happening in the scene.
Mhm. No, and if either actor wasn't on par with the other, it would fall flat. Like,
Yeah, it wouldn't work at all.
mhm.
But it's entirely internalized.
Yeah,
You're just in the heads of those characters. I said it was nearly symbiotic. It's like they're literally inside each other's minds at that point.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah,
the
'cause
cinematic equivalent of a mind melt, is what it is.
that's funny. But no, as important as Hopkins is to this role, she's just as important. Like they are absolutely on the same level.
Well, and that's why, and I know we talk about this all the time with like alternate reality scenarios. You just have to wonder what film history even looks like if it's two totally different actors in these roles.
Hmm.
And also, if I'm going to mention this earlier, also if the original director had stayed on the project. Do you know about this?
No.
So part of the reason this movie gets made is because of the money that Gene Hackman put up for it. Gene
Oh,
Hackman
crazy.
put up $250,000 with Orion, and Orion supplied the other $250,000, and they paid him back when he read part of the script and said, "Oh wait, this is too violent. I don't want to do this movie."
I did hear that he was looked at to be Hannibal Lecter. So I
Yeah,
didn't
he
realize
wasn't
that he put
looked
up the
at.
money.
He wanted to. No, not Lecter. He would
Oh.
if he had directed the movie, he would have played Crawford.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
he was never looked at for Lecter.
I just assumed that because it's Gene Hackman.
I did too initially, but I read a little bit further into it, and I found out that he wanted to direct it and be in it, but he wouldn't have played Hannibal Lecter. But yeah, what does it look like if he directs it? I don't know if I've ever seen a movie he's directed.
Yeah, I don't know that I have either.
I guess I
That's
didn't even realize
fascinating.
he directed movies.
Hmm. Well, in terms of the actors thing, like we do have that with the sequel where she's replaced by Julianne Moore, and it doesn't work as well. But it's also worse material. So.
Yeah, I'm still curious to see that at some point, though.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure.
But imagine if it is Michelle Pfeiffer and
Sean Connery.
Sean Connery. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if you would have had a movie there. It would have been really commercial, potentially.
I ate his liver, with fava beans and a nice Chianti.
The lambs,
This movie-
Clarice.
This
Are
doesn't,
the
this
la-
doesn't work when you say like
Have the
"Is
lambs stop?
silent?"
Have the lambs stop screaming, Clarice? Have the lambs stop screaming? You gotta love how methodical he is with this. When he takes out these guards.
Yeah, and again, like it's not gratuitous. Like we're not, kind of living with this violence. And I mean, I would have been fine if we were, but I do think it is, powerful that when he's beating this guy to death, it's just from his view.
Yeah, and emotionally, what you're seeing in his face is really rich and layered to me. Because I feel like I can see multiple things happening all at the same time. Like he's relishing this. He's been waiting for this for a long time. He's had a literal appetite for it, but he's also really cold and methodical all at the same time.
This is the shot, by the way, where I was thinking of R.I.P. Batman, where he's got the blood on his face and he's like doing the music.
Oh wow. Yeah, I just haven't read that in a long time.
And I haven't either, so I might be thinking of other stuff. People in the comments also mentioned Return of the Joker, which I was going to lump in with that, but then only said R.I.P.
Return of the Joker.
Mm-hmm. The Joker also has that kind of slick back hair.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I thought you meant some particular scene or shot from that.
Oh yeah, well, it's
No,
that
that's a
scene
good
where
call.
he eats Tim Drake's kidney. Turns
Yeah,
him into the Joker.
I don't think we brought that up when we did the commentary on that.
Yeah, I'm not sure. We might have.
So how much time, I want to ask you this, how much time do you think passes when between Lecter takes out those guards and
this part?
he starts the elevator? Yeah. Because when they
2
get
hours.
up there, you gotta wonder just how long it took him to truss up that corpse.
I'm going to say 2 hours because he has to have set all of this up.
Yeah, it would take a little bit of time. And then the
He
question
also would
is,
have had to put the body on top of the elevator, and he would have had to take the guy's face off and put it on his own.
yeah, I feel like the movie is vague enough about what their expectations would be, so it works fine. But I do find myself wondering a little bit how long they could have been gone before anybody would have gone and looked for them. Like, were the guards expected to stay in that room as he was eating? I would assume probably. Like, there's probably always somebody standing there watching Lecter, but we don't actually know that because the only things we see in that room are Clarice with him, and there's not going to be guards there then because he won't talk to her with guards probably. And then when that happens,
they are like farther off because there is like a table.
Oh, are they? Okay.
That she stops by, right?
I missed that.
Unless I'm messing up the.
So you're saying nobody's going to wonder where they are because they're supposed to be up there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because there's like a little table with chairs right there.
Then I'll stop taking any time talking about that.
No, it would have taken at least 2 hours, I think, to set all this up.
Fella makes a terrific point in the comments, and he says some people are so intelligent they can talk themselves into losing their humanity.
That is true.
You know, when you dwindle humanity down to chemicals and numbers, and if you can predict human behavior to the point where you can't help but see them as to see it as just math and nature.
Well, you know what the ultimate key to being able to break somebody is, right?
What? Is that what they say?
That is what they say.
But yeah, like, you could understand how people... That's such a good point. You can understand how people fit together too well to the point where you're unsympathetic. We usually think, people are sympathetic when they understand human beings. But you can set yourself apart from them where you're like, they don't even know why they do the things they do, but I do. And that means that they barely have free will if they do at all. They're not even masters of their own destiny.
No, I mean, he's essentially a doctor in people, right? He understands how...
And he literally consumes them.
Yeah, exactly.
Because he's above them. And we're pretty vague, and I think it works fine. I'm sure the books and maybe some of the other movies get a lot more into the psychology of why Hannibal Lecter is a cannibal and consumes his victims. I think there's kind of guesses and assumptions you could make about it in what we do know about him.
Yeah, definitely. I'm trying to think. I'm guessing Hannibal probably does because it's much more about him. And there is like a Hannibal prequel movie that I hear is awful. So that probably does as well.
When you said Red Dragon features him, but it's not all him, right?
No, it's like this. It's Edward Norton's trying to solve this murder, and he's meeting with Hannibal Lecter.
Oh, it's that again. Okay.
Yeah, except the difference is that he and Hannibal were friends, like back when Hannibal Lecter was a psychiatrist, and he's the guy that actually arrested Hannibal Lecter.
So, how effective do you think it is in being with Clarice's first person, like nearly first person POV? Much of the time, it is directly from frame one of the movie, and then we cut away for this escape for 8 minutes, and then we come back to her.
Yeah, I was thinking about that last night and people are probably going to be mad at me for saying this in the chat, but
Yeah.
I also watched Pan's Labyrinth for the first time last night,
Yeah.
which is a movie that is very beloved, and I loved it for like the first half, and then it kind of lost me in the second half. And one of the things that lost me is that I was so with the protagonist, and then we lose focus of her in the second half, I think. And I was wondering, like, why am I not having an issue with it here?
Yeah.
And
I'm having that like I do with Stephen King books, when he'll suddenly jump into other people's heads, which I am a huge stickler against in prose. But like when he does it, I almost never mind, and I don't know why. I can't explain that.
Well, it's because he'll go full on for it. Like he'll do Cujo and jump into the dog's head for a little bit.
But yeah, this completely breaks the setup, the conceit of the movie, for just 8 minutes, and I don't know. Is it because
just because it's so suspenseful, and it's almost like Hannibal hands off the notebook, and it's like, okay, now she's handing off the movie for a few minutes.
Sure. Well, let me ask that question a different way. If we didn't get all of this, and obviously the movie's a little less entertaining if we don't get this section. I mean, this is the most like suspense movie, like typical suspense movie feeling stuff in the movie. It's really well shot. I love it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not really criticizing it because I do think it works, but I'm trying to articulate why. Do you think the movie is? Do you think you'd miss it if you didn't know about it, and we just like had Crawford like call her at some point and go, he's escaped?
I probably wouldn't miss it, but I would be bummed that he's out of the movie in a way that I'm not having that scene. If that makes sense.
Because it's satisfying watching him do it. And then he leaves the movie, and you don't miss him because you got to see him do this really cool thing.
Yeah, no, he's got like a very satisfying end to kind of go off, and he's not really going to be in this movie anymore until one of the last scenes. The last scene. And
boy, Dark Knight rips this movie off in a lot of places.
Hannibal wanted to be caught 8 years ago.
Well, not only that, but like the disguises.
Oh yeah,
like escaping places. But escaping as a body is real badass.
I mean, it's the most badass thing you can do in life, really.
That is pretty freaking cool. And I also like that they don't feel the need to make the police officers, the guards, like really crappy people so that we'll enjoy watching them get killed.
No, and the one guard that gets his head like beat in with the stick, the baton, that guy's inherently likable because that's the character actor that's in Beyond the Valley of the Dolls. So
that guy's in everything. And he's in a lot of comedies.
Yeah, he's in all the Austin Powers too.
But
I
think it's really interesting and kind of sad. Like they do the opposite, right? They make you like one of those officers and then brutally kill him, because he's the one guy. He's one of two guys that shows Lecter a little bit of respect, not as much as the black guy earlier.
Yeah, Barney.
But like nobody's mean to him. They're not that guy from X2 with Magneto.
Yeah, or even just like the guy who runs the prison.
X2 is also looking at this with Magneto.
Yes. Yes, it is. I don't know that you have like the exact full glass design of his prison cell without this.
Yeah, and even just the way, like Patrick Stewart is visiting him in his prison, it feels Hannibal Lecter for a minute until we kind of flip the script on it a little bit.
Yeah, we subverted your expectations.
Teddy put in a $9.99 super chat. Thanks, man. He says, if you've seen the Hannibal TV show, the guy plays a very different interpretation of Hannibal, but still has that thing you're talking about. I don't know which thing that we're talking about he's talking about.
That he eats people, probably.
Well sure. But no, he probably means that he's able to do an interpretation, like in maybe in like the speaking slowly and methodically thing that you're talking about, the kind of and then like cold, sometimes unemotional, but then being able to break out in these real passionate kind of moments. I wonder if he does all of that stuff, if it's like a similar interpretation to the way Hopkins did it, but without just flat out doing an Anthony Hopkins impression.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. Because obviously you get that a lot with Brian Cox, but he was the first one to do it. And his Hannibal Lecter is just kind of an a-hole who just talks over you.
Oh, I didn't notice the trashy romance novel on the desk before.
You could have fit in like a really good joke with that, like I don't know, like something to do with skin. You could put in as the title of the book there.
Oh, sure. That's a good call.
Like the Evil Dead 2 Farewell to Arms book placement. Farewell to Skin.
Dan Schneider says Ian McKellen could have been Hannibal Lecter.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. His Hannibal Lecter would be like a very booming, like powerful Hannibal.
Yeah, Hopkins does this real understated thing where he's got a ridiculous amount of presence and he really owns a room, but he's not. But he can do that without doing anything.
Mm-hmm. No, the way I kind of think about the way Hopkins talks about this, and it's a little crass, but it's like he's owing on every line or every word. He gets so much pleasure out of every single syllable that he has to say, that he just takes his time and enjoys it.
Well, and again, he's a narcissist. He likes the sound of his own voice.
Mm-hmm. And then obviously, like, he can do like the more fast kind of tete-a-tete thing when he's talking to Clarice, but like that is typically how he talks.
Yeah, and I mean, I think there's moments where he's legitimately surprised by her and gets taken aback a little bit. So like usually he's owning every moment and he still is always talking like that. But he can be surprised by her, and I think that's partly why he why he finds her so fascinating and respects her. I missed a super chat from Bob the Hun earlier. He says the Hannibal books are Stephen King's favorites. I think he called Hannibal one of his favorite books of all time. He's really into the series. I didn't know that, but that's not surprising. And I did want to mention, since you said that this is a movie that has a lot in common with some Stephen King stories, but doesn't feel like a full-on Stephen King thing to me.
Mm-hmm. Almost like there's elements of King, but this isn't something that King would write.
I think it's because of the emphasis, and King does a lot of really character-driven stuff, don't get me wrong, and he can go back and forth between, more sensational feeling things and, more kind of thoughtful, thought-provoking fiction. But this is much more fun. I haven't read the book, but I imagine the book more so than a Stephen King thing. This is so focused on the detective work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which I can't see King as being as into.
I don't think he writes a lot of procedural stuff.
Mm-hmm. And I know he's done I think he has a trilogy of detective books. So I wonder what they look like.
I didn't know that.
I think so. Because I think they made a TV show of it.
I mean, famously, usually his protagonists are writers.
Yeah.
Or, just some guy, or... He doesn't usually focus on the cops.
Mm-hmm.
But he's also written 900 books, so there probably is one somewhere, and I don't know about it.
When Stephen King books are so... I'm trying to think how to phrase this. They're so, a specific structure of, okay, there are 3 major things that happen that kind of showcase the acts. That, I feel like this is so not exactly a 3-act structure that it feels less like a Stephen King book.
That's a good point. Yeah, I hate to say less formulaic than his work because it doesn't all follow the same formula.
No, but there are certain things I read a bunch of Stephen King back to back and then had to take a break because I was I could see especially that 3 plot point thing. I was okay, it's all character work, and then we're gonna hit the plot beat, and then it's gonna be characters thinking and discussing that, and then we're gonna get the second plot beat, and then the climax.
You felt like there was a loose outline he was following?
I was I can see the outline, and I don't. That's not even necessarily I feel like he writes on an outline, but it could just be how he writes fiction.
Yeah, I really appreciate that the victim here is being so proactive.
Mm-hmm. No, it is cool. And we're about to get the most disturbing scene in the movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I think indisputably, actually.
That's also one of the funniest things to quote is would you left me?
Oh, God.
So hard.
This killer is really memorable because the perspective is so unique and out there and kind of difficult to grasp.
Mm-hmm. What I like too,
but oddly relatable in its way, where you could sort of see somebody with a personality disorder getting to this, where somebody that's kind of an outcast, nobody understands him, and he also like I said earlier, I think he hates himself for all of his flaws and his personality disorder and everything, and he's trying to be better than that, and by doing that, he's more horrifying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
No, it's funny because I was that's one of the things that they take from Ed Gein, and I hear this movie brought up a lot as being a movie that hates trans people, and it's
yeah, I was going to talk about that
because the movie's very ahead of that. It knows the audience is going to think that, because we're right in that period where we're starting to think a little bit more politically correct in the 90s. So that is something that they're definitely aware of, and I think they do a good job of being look, it's not a whole group of people, this is just this one guy.
Yeah, well, and
I feel 5 years before this, there would not be that scene.
No, but also, I don't want to get too in the weeds with this and, political and stuff, of course, but part of that is because even 5 years before this, maybe more of the audience would be expected to think that that's such an incorrect lifestyle that maybe every gay and trans person is a psychopath like this and would act that way. And obviously that's not what the intent of the movie is, and it's more than an oversimplification to assume that, and you're not really paying attention to what's happening in the movie. First of all, Hannibal Lecter comes right out and says he's not a real trans person.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he has a different motivation for wanting to be a woman than feeling like it's not the woman kind of trapped in a man's body. That's not what it is. Because if it was that, he wouldn't have to hurt anyone to do what he's doing. He can just decide to and he tries to get the surgery and nobody will let him because he's this extreme personality and he's maybe violent. But if he wanted to, he could dress as a woman, he could act as a woman. He doesn't have to go as far as to kill an actual woman and wear her skin, obviously. So I think the movie is going out of its way to say this is not what a whole persuasion of people are like, or what a whole group of people with a particular sexual preference is like.
Mm-hmm. No, in a way, it is the '90s equivalent of, and again, it's another Ed Gein thing, but that like really awkward ending scene in Psycho where they have to explain it to you. Like it's more natural than that is.
No, it is more natural than that, absolutely.
But it's that same kind of idea, right? Where it's like, we're going to explain to you, this isn't, just this one group of people that's, being demonized.
No, and that's not forced, but I do think that you actually needed the discussion about that.
I do too, yeah.
Not just to cover their bases, but because this is, like I said, a perspective that is very difficult to understand. Mm-hmm. Like, why this killer does what he does in trying to, in what the moths mean, the whole kind of chrysalis thing, the trying to, wrap yourself up in a cocoon and change into something better. And that's the really screwed up, sad thing about it, is this guy wants to be better. And the way he's going to do that is the reason he's a psychopath.
Mm-hmm. But it makes me wonder, because there's a scene early on when Crawford is like, okay, do a psychological breakdown of the killer from what we know. And she's, giving all these details. And one of the things that she lists is that he'll never stop because it feels too good. But at the same time, like, with what we know about Buffalo Bill, like, would he stop if he has his skin suit? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't either. And that's one of the places where I feel like I need more viewings, because I don't think I've got this guy completely figured out.
Mm-hmm.
He's also a nut job that kills women and steals their skin, so maybe there isn't any fully understanding him. And I think that's also an important thing to note about real-life serial killers is very often the full-on logic is only logical to them. Mm-hmm. You can understand it only to a point, and that makes this guy feel very believable.
Mm-hmm. No, and I also don't need an answer on if he would get his full skin suit and then stop killing people.
Like, well, what would make Hannibal Lecter satisfied enough where he would stop eating people? Like, what is the need that he is filling?
Well, probably his stomach.
By consuming his victims. Like, because it's not like he's only eating, like people that he finds fascinating or intellectual. It's kind of the opposite of that, really. Like, I don't think he would ever. I don't think he would eat Clarice. Mm-hmm. I think he has too much respect for her for that.
Yeah, no, I think it's a superiority thing.
Yeah, it's that most people are beneath him, and he sees as, like food, totally disposable. Mm-hmm. And
yeah, so I don't know that
somebody like Clarice who's closer to his level, it's like now you're closer to the pantheon. You're closer to, you could maybe live with me on Olympus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which from what I remember is what the Hannibal is about. The sequel movie, like, it's him trying to make her like his, I don't know, like bride or whatever.
There's an excerpt of a. Oh, by the way, first viewing of this movie, I did not notice the moth in the picture.
Mhm.
Isn't there a moth in a picture next to his head somewhere in the scene?
It's next to hers.
Is that where it is? Okay, because
Yeah.
I wasn't seeing it.
Like I said, there's so many just little details in this, in Buffalo Bill's house that I'm like, I just want to go to that set and, and be able to like admire all of it.
Well,
'Cause
and
there's
you
also
feel
a
bad
part
because
where
there's
in the
probably
corner-
cool stuff in there that they never even got a shot of.
Yeah, no, there's a part where I think either she turns the corner or he turns the corner, and there's like a brief shot where there's like a Hitler poster that says like something America underneath, and I can't tell if it's like if it's like
interesting.
a pro-Nazi thing or like a we're American, we hate the Germans poster, but it's like it's something, and it flashes by so quick, I don't know what it is.
So are you with me on what I said earlier, where you actually do buy that she would put herself in this kind of danger and keep walking into the house instead of trying to call for backup?
Yes, no, I absolutely do. One, especially because if she leaves right now, like he can kill that girl, he can get away, and it's it's that lamb that she tried to save and didn't. She's gotta do it. She's gotta silence him.
Well, and that's why sometimes situations like this are more effective, more suspenseful when you set them, when they're made in a period like this, or they're set during a period like this, where if you do a 2023 version of Silence of the Lambs, she's got a phone. She just starts calling people.
Well, now I'm just thinking of like Jack Bauer, like on the phone with Chloe, like going through this room, like Crawford, I need the layout of this house.
Get out of this house. How big is that basement?
Okay, I'm getting her in this room.
And this is, by the way, an insane sized basement. Like it's got a well in it.
Yeah, no, that's like probably the most stylized thing in the movie.
The most kind of fantastic thing.
The most like movie set thing.
It feels like a TARDIS. Like it is bigger on the inside.
What's the most like just monsters layer, right?
Yeah. Well, it feels like it must be under like 3 other people's houses. Teddy, $10 super chat. That thing you're talking about. Sorry, it's that thing where he's pure evil, but there's some weird humanity in him, but not like really. It's hard to explain, but they both have it in different ways. Yeah, you articulated that maybe even a little bit better than I did, because that's a difficult thing to explain. But yeah, that exactly. I'm glad I'm not alone on that. Yeah, well, it's hard not to dance around it because you don't want to, talking about this, you don't want to come off where you're like, oh, these serial killers are like real, well-rounded human beings. They're not. They have these personality disorders that make them where they've lost some degree of their humanity. And I'm so frustrated with the notion of narcissists, right? Because in our society, we vilify them, we hate them, we know that they can't be cured, and there's not anything we can do to help them. But in a weird, twisted way, they're victims of their own self-absorption, self-obsession, their own like mental handicap to some degree. Sorry, what were you gonna say?
I said their own hubris.
But not just hubris, like, it's a mental condition. And it's frustrating that we can't treat it like, we can't be empathetic toward them like other people with mental conditions. But the fact that there's, like, nothing you can do for them, and when they do horrible, heinous things, and I'm not saying that every narcissist does this, but...
There was the Hitler poster.
The fact that we know that they know that they're doing wrong makes them, according to our justice system anyway, and most people's morality, it makes them responsible for their actions. But in a way, they shouldn't be, because they can't help themselves. They have a mental condition. It's so frustrating. Like, I don't know what to do with the concept of narcissism. Because I don't want to vilify people that can't help but act the way they act. But then they're also responsible for their actions. What do you do with that?
Yeah, no kidding. I guess because narcissists are usually a-holes, and we can all agree to hate a-holes.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's,
So,
you know,
in the interview that I was watching earlier with Jodie Foster, there's this really funny part where she starts talking about how she's talked to a lot of people that are impressed with her for acting in complete darkness. And
she was like, I wasn't.
Yeah, what the hell are you talking about? It wasn't pitch black. I was pretending. She's like, you can even see the way we lit it. That's light. And then we just put a filter over the scenes from Buffalo Bill's perspective.
Oh, so in the chat, people are saying that there's swastikas on his bed, and she just like stumbled into it, and there is.
Oh, wow.
So there is a thing there.
I don't even know what to do with that. Like, the idea that this guy is, like, white supremacist or, likes Nazi propaganda, I don't even know what to do with that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, it probably goes with that kind of, like, experimentation, right?
Yeah, maybe. But what's the ideology behind it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I'm not sure, because that's not something I fully noticed.
Because his motivations don't seem to have anything to do with, bigotry or at least I didn't think they did.
Mm-hmm.
So
interesting.
It works, but she does get. God, I love the look on her face there, the almost feral expression.
Yeah.
It works. But she is a little lucky that he doesn't kill her when he had the chance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think it's probably because my wife and I talked about this, and what we came to is he's probably noodling all the possible permeations of events immediately after this if he kills her. Like,
I think it's that, and he doesn't fully know what he wants to do with her, because there's also like he reaches out to like grab her hair, and like I think he's like, okay, what am I gonna do to this person as well? Like, am I gonna?
But she doesn't fit his profile. He's not gonna want to make a suit out of her, and he doesn't hurt women because he hates women.
No, but like also the way he like reaches out to her is like he wants to like caress her hair, like is kind of the image it looks like.
I was never sure what to do with that. Yeah.
So like, yeah, I don't know.
I love the progression, the connected tissue between scenes here with the way and we haven't talked about score at all. This movie has a lovely haunting theme, but the music continues from the previous scene with Bill's death directly into her getting her FBI license. Yeah. And I just think that's an interesting choice, where it doesn't feel like aftermath. It feels like a direct connection, almost like saying, this is her being rewarded for the horrible trauma she just now dealt with. I think it's very, very intentional to kind of almost keep us in scene through, weeks or months have passed.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. And even the bug guys came to her graduation.
Oh, I didn't notice that. That's great. There is, by the way, I want the FBI cake. I want to make an FBI cake now.
Yeah, so do I. I'm gonna make it with like little characters from this movie on top.
Senior Sticks keeps saying over and over again in the chat, the Nazi symbol is a symbol of peace that was ruined by the Nazis. Right.
He's talking. Yeah, but it's a different. Like they look slightly different.
Right. Sure, but again, I don't know what that tells us about that character.
No, if it was that, he wouldn't have a Hitler poster either.
I see what you're saying. Yeah. So like, it is a direct association with Nazi iconography.
No, like there is a peace swastika, but it's not the exact same thing.
Yeah.
The funniest thing in this movie is Hannibal Lecter's hair in the scene.
His outfit here, where he's totally changed his look.
Yeah, it's
So,
awesome wig.
so how do you feel about ending this movie this way, which is probably maybe like the most Hollywood thing in it?
I don't know. I think it's kind of the perfect ending to the story. And it's the kind of ending that also implies that, this isn't really the end between these two people.
Yeah. No, I like that a lot too. No, I like it. There's just something a lot more, I don't even know how to put it, like just mainstream movie about it than like the rest of the film.
Yeah.
Where just
Also,
just kind of the teasy nature of it.
But
But then
kind of sequel baity, you think?
Okay, I'm going to put it like this. You know why it works?
Why is that?
Because the 8 minutes of him away from her also works, and I can't explain why. And this is like the epilogue or the after credits to that stuff. So the way you have to look at it,
they need like a final beat.
Say again?
I said they need a final beat.
Yeah, the way I want to look at it is you have a mini movie within the movie, and this is the way those two things converge. Where it's how you tie those two things together.
Well, I don't think it. I mean, obviously, with what we have, like it does work with kind of how he sees her, but it fully encapsulates it when he calls her at her graduation to kind of say goodbye for now.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Then it has the.
You can read a lot into that too, right? Like you wouldn't be here if it wasn't for me.
No,
Maybe.
And it's also just like a good job, kid. You did it.
Maybe not. Yeah.
Like I knew you could do it.
Daniver says, I mean, it is a mainstream movie. Yeah, sure. Well, and a lot more so after how well it did at the box office and all of that.
Well, I think you probably mean like that kind of Hollywoodized.
Yeah, I'm not talking about what it is so much as the way it's made,
ending.
right?
Or
Like,
not ending, but just movie.
It's a lot more art housey than that before that. Except for the escape stuff.
Yeah.
But then even that feels better than your standard action movie or thriller movie because it's really intelligent and thoughtful in showing you all the pieces of it.
Yeah, exactly. And it gives us the great line, I'm having a friend for dinner.
Yeah, and you got to have that. We haven't had enough cannibal puns yet. You definitely have to have them.
Oh, well, and we just need to know that jerk, jailhouse guy got his comeuppance.
Yeah, because that's the one character in the movie that you're made to hate, who's like over the top awful.
Yeah, when all of this is his fault. Like, if it wasn't for him, Hannibal wouldn't have gotten out.
No, that's right. Just keep track of your damn pen.
Well, just let the FBI do their thing.
Yeah. No, that's exactly
Who cares
right.
if they're lying for maybe not the best reasons, or they're not being super moral, whatever.
And that's definitely a movie archetype, right? The horrible prison warden.
Oh yeah.
But like I said, I appreciate there's not a ton of that in the movie.
There's a guy in the credits named OJ.
I like
do it that way, you will.
I like the irony that, at least from our perspective, because we're in Clarice's head, and that guy doesn't have any respect for her at all, and is very misogynistic toward her. We like him less than Hannibal Lecter. Like he seems more villainous than Hannibal Lecter does.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I wanted to mention this real quick. I read an excerpt of what I found to be kind of a bizarre contemporary review. To your point earlier, Austin, about how this movie handles, gender and sexual themes. there, of course, this got rave reviews, and most critics saw it as a big turning point in the genre and movies in general, as it was like a really innovative artistic piece. But there were some people that were just really offended by it. And like you said, some of them thought that there was this like innate hatred to like gay and trans people,
transsexuals, yeah,
and that kind of thing.
Well, I hear a lot of people throw out,
and some of it. Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I hear a lot of people say there's an issue with like transphobia in horror movies, and the only 3 movies people ever throw out are this, Psycho, and Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and they're all based on the same killer.
Yeah, well, and what I was gonna say is some of it was also just people being offended by violence toward women, as if simply by the very nature of having that as a plot point in a movie, you're celebrating it or condoning it or something.
Oh, how can you say that when
I never
Starling is super empowering?
Oh no, it's insane, right? Like
that's ridiculous.
It was heralded by most people, of course, as kind of this like big important, sort of feminist moment, and like however you feel about feminism, it's very strange to say it's the exact opposite of that, just because you have like how superficial and simple-minded is it? This is how I feel about it, to say your movie has a man that skins women alive, so it's okay with women being skinned alive. I mean, that's essentially what you're saying if you say you're offended by that. What is the movie saying about having it there? Like, if that's how you feel about it, then what's on the table? You have to be taking so much off the table at that point. So basically, we have to, in movies, pretend like these sorts of things don't happen so that we don't hurt anybody's feelings about it. It's preposterous. So there was this review from a female critic in 1991 who was like, I'm not saying that the movie shouldn't be shown. I'm not saying that the movie is not an artistic masterpiece. She even said, I don't think she's a masterpiece, but like an artistic triumph. She said, but it's got women being skinned alive. How did it win 4 Oscars? That's what she said. Yeah.
Dies from cringe.
And she goes, that's what I'm offended about.
No, that's weird.
And then the next thing she said was, I'm offended by that, not the Playboy centerfold, and I have no idea what that had to do with anything, but it might have been taken out of context. I don't know what that had to do with the rest of them. I was very confused about that part of the quote. But anyway, doesn't context matter? Mm-hmm. So basically what you're saying is you can't make a movie that is against violence against women if you decide to show any of it. Mm-hmm. But I mean, like, I'm not sure that person would even be okay with talking about it.
No, it's
this is verging on political commentary. I apologize, but that kind of thing really bothers me, Austin. You should be able to tell a story about any damn thing you want to. Mm-hmm. And what you say about it is what matters.
I mean, just the way I look at it is it's a movie where your kind of main female protagonist is like beat down, and she lives in a world where she has to work harder to get to where she is, and it's empowering because she does. And she wins out in the end and builds herself up. And you know what I mean? I was saying this to Cap off camera, like, if this movie were made now with how a lot of movies handle this stuff now, that shot in the elevator wouldn't be that where she walks in and there's like all the guys that are bigger and above her. It would be one of the guys would be like, you're a woman and you can't get by in this industry, and then she would grab him and like twist his arm and put him on like a table. We do that a lot now.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Well, it's that deleted scene from Captain Marvel.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly what I was thinking of. Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyways, weird.
Robert Watt put in an unrelated $2 super chat. Apparently, Richard Mole just died.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And he said, "R.I.P. Richard Mole, the voice of Two-Face on Batman TAS."
Crazy.
I mean, that's how he's relevant to this channel. Of course, the thing he was most known for was Night Court.
Mm-hmm. I love Night Court.
Which is weird, because that got a revival, and he wasn't involved.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they put out a first season, or it's airing, or it's about to air or something. But
Oh, okay.
But real quick, back to what we were talking about for a moment. And yeah, sad to hear that. The reason the fake transgender thing works so well thematically in this movie, and the reason I'm glad they took the risk with it, and like, let me say this real quick too. I kind of understand in 1991 maybe the complaint of, like, I understand it. I don't share it, I guess. But I could sympathize, Austin, a little bit with the complaint of, but we don't see very much like positive usage of people of that persuasion in movies. So people are gonna get the wrong idea when you use like a fake transgender person who's murdering people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I kind of understand why that would rub people the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, absolutely.
The director even said that, where he was like, I hadn't really considered that when we shot it. He was like, I guess I understand now that, like, we didn't have, those people didn't show up in movies. You and I reviewed,
The Crying Game.
That thank you. I couldn't think of it. You and I reviewed a film that was very thoughtful about this, that was made in the early 90s, like right around the same time, right?
Yeah, I think a few years after this. I feel like that was like 95, but I could be wrong. 94, 95.
Okay, just a little while after this. That was about a woman that you didn't know was a woman until like 2/3 of the way into the film.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Right, or a man that I can't remember now. Was it a?
Yeah, it was. You think that it's that she's a woman, and then
and then it turns out that it was a trans man. That's what it is, and it has
a trans woman, I guess. Yeah,
and has a relationship with a guy who doesn't know that, and then he has to reconcile his feelings for her, and it was excellent. But that was kind of few and far between, and hadn't been made by this point. So yeah, I sort of understand that complaint about the industry in the whole in 1991. Let me get that out of the way.
Absolutely.
However, this is a movie.
Oh, Crying Game was 92, says Daniverse.
See,
okay,
I thought it was closer. Yeah. So that's immediately after this. So this is a movie about a woman who is on a crusade to save another woman, so that she can maybe, because she insists on not being a victim, and she wants to save the people that can't save themselves, right? And the monster that she has to save that woman from is a perversion of women. And I just don't know a better way to do that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's also a movie with, about a woman like that, and most of the men in it are evil to slimy. Because that's something that we complain about with things when it's done really badly. But you can do it and have it work. Like, this movie does that. Even with Crawford.
But it's also not vilifying all men to do it.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, Crawford's a good person, but
But there's also an implication that Hannibal brings up that he's maybe not. So it's like...
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a good point. But at least
and you can look at the way he uses Clarice and stuff. Like, there's arguments to be made that he's at least shady.
Yeah, but I would also argue that from his perspective, like he's doing that for the greater good. You could argue that it's a necessary evil, and if sending a man in the same situation and not telling him what exactly is going to happen would have led him to that end, he would have done the same thing too. So it's not sexism.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, you do have that great moment where we didn't talk about this while we were watching it, but you've got that great moment where he says, I sent you out of the room during the funeral because I needed some certain thing to happen. I can't remember what exactly it is, but he did it under the pretext of, or the pretense, pardon me, of this is not conversation that a woman should be present for. And she stands up for herself and says, I get that, but you can't do that because people will look at me differently. I have to be on the same level as everybody else. And he apologizes to her. Like, he's not vilified, but we're also realistic about how he cannot fully put himself in her shoes and understand her perspective. So it's real nuanced about that.
Mm-hmm. No, exactly. Like I said, like, I think every man in this is either like evil or like kind of shady, slimy to, just flawed in that way.
The major ones, but I mean, like, you've got the nice guard guy at the beginning, the black guy.
True.
You got minor, just.
Well, I think
a lot of it is about.
Also has like a father figure that she looks up to that's not vilified in any way.
Yeah, no, he was a good person. A lot of it is just the attitude of the film in general toward a persuasion of people, and I'm trying to decide how exactly I want to put it. You can just tell when a piece is being phony.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't have to cheat or cut any kind of corners to make the point it's making about Clarice and where we are in this moment in time with women in these kinds of jobs, right? Police, military, etc. And it's also not just about making a point. It's about creating a compelling drama. She is, as I said earlier, a natural underdog.
Mm-hmm. No, it's just part of it. It's something she's got to work above.
You use that as background. You use it as trappings to make your protagonist more compelling and make it easier for us to put ourselves in her position. Anybody can relate to that character, whether you're female or not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, exactly.
I'm going to read this last super chat, and then we'll go ahead and
call
it.
We have two. You missed one earlier.
Okay. Can you read it?
Schneider. Yeah,
can you read it? Because I don't know which one.
$2 in the from Dan Schneider. In the book, we learn a lot more about Buffalo Bill.
In what now?
He said in the book, we learn a lot more about Buffalo Bill.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, I need to get a copy of that and read that because I'm frustrated and not fully getting my head around that psychology.
Mm. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I have that and Red Dragon, so I want to read Red Dragon soon, and then I'll read this.
We should do a book review together and see if it gets better than like 55 views.
Yeah, exactly.
And Teddy put in another $10 super chat. Appreciate you, buddy. He says, I'm not saying Schindler's List isn't an artistic triumph, but it got Jewish people being put in camps. How did it win 4 Oscars?
Exactly. We need to burn copies of Schindler's List because it gives the wrong ideas.
Shouldn't you be? I'm sorry, I'm getting on a soapbox with this, and I'm arguing with an excerpt from a review I didn't fully read, which is probably not fair. And from 30 years ago, who knows if that person is even still alive? But what I want to say is, and she's certainly not watching this, but what I wanted to say is, shouldn't you be more offended if we ignore talking about terrible things that happen to people? Because these kinds of things help us like think about them and become aware of them, and then it's like knowing your history so you don't repeat it, right? Like we need to be more aware of these things, and it's always impressive when something like this can do that, where simultaneously you think about something when you haven't before, but you're also entertained by it. So like it can be escapist and not all at the same time.
Well, to balance it out, to like knock off your soapbox thing, if that's how you're feeling, my favorite contemporary view like that that's weird is I saw one the other day for Raiders of the Lost Ark that complained that the bad guys in it weren't nuanced enough and were made out to just be evil.
That's great. And they were Nazis.
And this is basically a Jewish revenge film. Yep.
Wow. Interesting. And you know what? No matter who the bad guys are in that movie, you're not understanding the piece when you say that.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. No, that's, a different side of what you're saying. It's just, you're not giving the piece what it's doing.
No, you're not taking it on its own terms at all.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not entertained by this movie because women are being skinned alive. What's impressive is that I'm still entertained by it despite that's there.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's amazing, because that's terrible and horrifying. And you're supposed to be obviously more than put off by that. And it's important that it's a woman triumphing over a man that is doing that to women. And again, he's weirdly, like, look at it like a superhero and a supervillain, right? Like, he is the perfect. Sorry, I'm still on about this. He is the perfect arch nemesis for a hero like that, because she is a woman, and all he wants is to be what she is for like twisted, screwed up reasons.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Roll credits.
Yeah. Well, anyway,
Yeah.
Thanks again for watching, folks. We're going to go ahead and get going, but we'll be back again for lots more content here next week. Next Friday night, Austin and I are going to do a thing we've talked about forever that he's very excited about. We're putting off the Rewind commentaries for one more week, and we are finally going to do a blind commentary. It'll be a watch party. Austin made me swear that I wouldn't watch it ahead of time, so I'm not going to.
And I've seen it, but Cap's never seen it.
Yes, so it'll be blind for me. We're gonna do the live action Death Note movie, and I love Death Note. I've seen the whole series. It's been a year and a half, so I'm a little bit rusty on it. I've watched the first few episodes somewhat recently, but the movie is
the best version of Death Note.
No, what I was gonna say is,
it's true though.
It's notorious. It has a reputation. Netflix made it, and apparently they decided that the right response to everybody hating that movie was to make a miniseries. So,
well, I'm so sad.
They're doing another thing.
They were talking about making a sequel for so long, and Noah and our Discord and we have like this whole pitch of what the sequel to that movie is that I'll bring up next time. Because I'm so sad.
I'm excited to see Defoe as Ryuk. That's crazy casting.
Mm-hmm. No, and he's great.
But Austin has told me to really temper my expectations with that.
Yes, in terms of, like, if you're thinking he's going to be around a lot, yes.
Oh, no. Okay. All right. So, yes, the American one, Kando Tour. Anyway, so,
I feel like
that's what we're doing.
Everyone likes Defoe as Ryuk in that movie. So, like, that is a part that people do like.
Yeah. And I don't know if the Japanese live-action movies are supposed to be any good or not.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think there's 2 of them, maybe?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've seen like little GIFs and stuff of them that look a little weird because there's like a big CGI guy in this movie with not a huge budget.
Oh, weird. So they didn't CG enhance Defoe?
No, he's fully CGI in the Netflix movie.
I wasn't sure how else you'd do it. Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway.
It's also like kept in shadow and stuff. Like it's not like
okay.
Like I've seen clips and stuff of the Japanese one where it's like him in like fluorescent lighting. you know.
Oh, weird. Okay.
It's like, you maybe should have darkened this a little. It doesn't look great. But I'm sure
you can't do that with just makeup. The mouth is too big.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Well, Austin, thanks for talking about this with me. I feel like we covered a lot of ground with it.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. We put that lotion in the basket, as it were.
Yeah, that's I mean that is a monster to tackle. There's a lot of stuff to talk about. So hopefully
Mhm.
we
Nope. Really, two
gave it its
big
due.
heavy hitters.
Seriously, yeah, that's exhausting doing that in Exorcist back to back. I'm just glad we didn't try to do it in one night. Oh my god.
Yeah, no kidding. Imagine trying to keep all that together.
I'll probably have at least one more stream before Halloween, but if you are watching this live or after the fact and you don't see me by then, happy Halloween to everybody, and
Mhm.
have a good, fun, safe Tuesday night doing whatever you might be doing, having a party, taking your kids trick-or-treating, whatever. And in the meantime, we'll see you real soon. I was Captain Logan. This was The Day Ghost.
Good night, boys and ghouls.
Bye, folks. Goodbye, Clarice.